Let me start this video by saying that this isn't a video saying that you shouldn't consider a secondary. Sure, for beginners learning the game, keeping focus with one character will help you understand situations better, and there are top players who only got there playing one character. But there are many other top players who use secondaries for different reasons and have been just as successful with them. So while you're thinking about using a secondary, here are some important pros and cons to consider. There are three main matchup types to consider when facing someone. The character matchup, how effective one's tools are with dealing with another characters. The player matchup, how solid of a game plan you have against that opponent you're facing, works especially well if you know their habits and strategies. And the style matchup, how good you are at handling the matchup on how it's played on your end. Picking up a character to help deal with any of these matchup types can be very effective if you want to win. Even if Mario vs Luigi tends to be considered an even matchup, if the Luigi hates how patient and slow the neutral plays out, he can switch to someone like Greninja, who can complement his preferred playstyle more. Something to consider, however, is the workload it increases. You won't always know who your next opponent is going to use against you. You also won't always know if they're going to have a secondary of their own. So you'll end up having to learn matchups you dislike if you want to avoid immediately losing every time someone counterpicks you. And this workload adds up the more characters you play. It's why it's highly recommended that you keep it to 2 characters if you can. We touched on player matchups a little in the last section, but a player counterpick is picking a character specifically because you know they are bad against that character. This is pretty common between rivals, since they play all the time and as a result know what tends to annoy the other. It can be a pretty great strategy, especially if you know they feel like they have a mental block against the character. The problem there though is that mental blocks can disappear at any time. Trust me, I kept my DDD around just to fight one player who always lost to it, and dropped him the moment he finally beat it because he covered no matchups. Players are actively working in the background to beat each other, actively learning matchups and actively changing habits, at least they should be doing that. If the character they struggle with is your main, well, you're actively trying to push your character. Learning that helps you. But if it's a character you're around just for the sake of 1 or 2 people who are bad against it, eventually they'll catch up. And then you'll be stuck with a character who beats no one and drop them. It's best to think about what options that random character uses that your rival seems to struggle with, so that you can use the same strategy with your main. Feels easier to hit them when they approach? Is it the safety of their counter approach, or is it positioning? Easier to kill them? Have you truly explored all the options your main has to do? You main a mid tier and you want to use the top tier to beat them? Then if you aren't willing to put in the work to learn what to do, why use a mid tier at all? These are all questions you must ask yourself before you decide if it's worth the effort. Which brings me to my final point. Listen, Smash is fun. We all love playing it, and I know it's hard to restrict yourself to 1 or 2 characters. I understand that when a new character releases or you randomly pick someone up in friendlies, it's exciting to learn new and awesome things. But there are your friendly characters, and there are your tournament characters. Tournaments are a chance to grow as a player, to see the result of your practice and studying, and to push yourself to do better than last time. If you think a secondary will lead you to winning more, go for it and work hard. But I've seen so many players who are so stressed about matchups, who switch off their main, and then when the other person sees that they switch off their main, they're happy. Because it's so much easier. Don't make it easier on your opponents. Your main is your main because you believe in them the most. Support is fine, but you need to find the purpose of that support. Whether it is to calm down the pace of the set or to help in a really difficult matchup. Fun will always happen because it's Smash and we love it, but secondaries need to be pushed just as hard as your main when it comes to their purpose. Keep it fun, but always work hard to play your best.